Hello everyone, welcome to today's tutorial where we'll be diving into the world of OBS Studio. I'm Krisha and I'm excited to guide you through the ins and outs of OBS Studio. First off, what is OBS? OBS Studio is a free and open source program for live streaming and video recording. You can create scenes with multiple types of video sources, including a computer display, video games, webcams, video files, and more. It's an extremely powerful and also versatile screen recorder, and you could use it to stream to services like YouTube, Twitch, and also Facebook. First thing first, let's download and install OBS Studio. Here I'm on my PC, and first off, I want to show you how you can get OBS. Once again, it's entirely free. To get OBS, head over to the website obsproject.com. I also included a link in the description. You can simply click on that to navigate to this website. OBS is compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux operating system. Alright, to download OBS, simply click on the operating system that you're using and then run through the installation process. Once you finish downloading and installing the OBS, go ahead and launch the app. Here we are in the OBS Studio interface. Don't worry if it looks overwhelming at first. So now, how do we get started? By far the easiest way to get going with OBS is to go up to the top menus and then click on Tools. I want you to click on Auto Configuration Wizard, and here we have a choice to make. In other words, you have an option to make adjustment to what exactly you want to use OBS for. You could use it for streaming, for screen recording, or you could use it as a virtual camera. With the streaming option, if you select this, it will take you to next screen where you can customize your settings. Here, we need to select what our base resolution is. And I would like to select the option that matches the resolution of my display. When you click on this drop down list, here I see display 1 and 2 since I have two monitors. So if you have only one, it will say display 1. In this case, I want to use display 1. My resolution is 1920 by 1080 and I select that. Next, there's a question about frames per second that you would like to use. And we have several different options here. We could go with 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, or we could do either one. But prefer either higher frames or lower frames in general. If you're going to be recording, let's say gameplay, you probably want to go with higher frame rate. That makes it look a little bit smoother. If you're going to be recording things like a desktop or an application, you probably want to go with 30 frames per second and you will have a little bit better resolution. So I'm going to select 30 frames per second now. But feel free to choose the value that matches what you're planning on recording and then click on next. Here we need to select service that we are going to streaming for. Click on the service. Here you can see a list of service that you can use, whether it's YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, whichever the platform that you're going to use. Alright, since I'm not going to show you how to stream in this video, let's go back and have a look at other options that we have and what we can do with them. With screen recording, you will be able to record your screen and then you will have a video file on your computer that you can go and edit. Or you could send it to others. Lastly, there's another option for using a virtual camera. So what is virtual camera? Well, in a moment we are going to compose a scene using OBS. With a virtual camera, you can send that scene to different video conferencing software, whether it's Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or Google Meet, or any other services. You can use a virtual camera. For this tutorial today, I'm going to optimize for recording, but just keep in mind what you see today. You can use it for streaming and you could also use it for a virtual camera. Once you make your selection, let's click on next. First, we need to indicate what our base resolution is. Just like we did before, I select mine. Once we make all of our selections, let's now click on next. On the next screen, we see the final result of Auto Configuration Wizard. And this shows us various settings that's going to put in place for our recording. And all of this looks good. So next click on Apply Setting. If you want to go back and make any modification to settings, you can always click on Tools again and you could run to Auto Configuration Wizard. Once again, I suppose this is the easy way to get going. If you want to change the various settings, you can click on the File menu, click on Settings. Within the settings, click on Output, and then you can customize your streaming and your recording setting. If you want to full control, you could also click on Output mode and then click on Advanced, and you have full control over the setting of your streaming and your recording. Once again, using the Auto configuration wizard is by far the easiest way to get going. Alright, on the left, you have your scenes. Scenes are a collection of sources. And to do that, we are going to use this black rectangle area. This is referred to as a scene. We are going to add different sources to the scene. Down in the bottom left hand corner, you can see that this scene is called scene. You could rename it by clicking on it and then look for a rename, or by pressing F2 on your keyboard. However, you can also add additional scenes. You can also remove scenes, and later on we'll do that. Especially once you start getting multiple scenes, it's a good idea to rename them. First though, I want to simply get started using OBS. So let's now focus on sources and let's start adding a few simple sources. You might be wondering, what is a source? Sources can be anything from your display capture to your webcam and more. Well, let's click on the plus icon to see what type of items we can add to our scene. Here we see a list of all the different type of sources that we can add. Now, two of the ones that you'll probably most likely to want to use. One of them is called display capture. What this means is, well, this is basically capturing your display or your desktop. If you're going to be playing a game, you will likely want to click on game capture instead. For now though, let's click on display capture to simply capture our desktop. This opens up a prompt where we can give it a name. I'll simply leave it to display capture. Once again, if you start adding many different sources, it helps to give it a unique name. Let's now click on OK. This opens up properties. Here I can now see my display. Down below, let's say I had a multiple monitors. I can choose which display I want to focus on. I could also select whether to include my mouse cursor. Now, everything looks good, so I'm going to click on OK. Back on the main screen, you will see your scenes start coming together. We now have the display showing up here. If you're recording or streaming and you would like to include the audio, we also need to add a source for your microphone or for your system audio. Let's click once again under sources on the plus icon. And at the very top of this list, there's the option for audio input capture. Let's click on this. For this one, I want this to be my microphone. So I'm going to rename it to microphone. Next, click on OK. On the properties screen, I can choose the device and I am going to select my microphone. Next, let's click on OK. I can now see my microphone in the audio mixer and it's working. Here, I can see that the audio is coming through. Now that I've added a few different sources, you could start to see the importance of make sure you give the sources an easy to understand name, especially when you start getting many different items showing up in this list. You want to know what the different items are. Next, let's focus our attention over on the audio mix. Here we can see our audio sources. You can also drag here to adjust the level. You can also mute, unmute the sources, and you have some advanced audio properties here. To the right of the audio mixture, you also have scene transition, and later on, once we add another scene, we'll come back to what you can do with this. But before we do that, let's start recording something so we could just see how OBS even works. Over on the right hand side, we have a variety of different controls. At this point, we can start streaming to our favorite streaming service. We could also start recording, and in a moment we'll do this. We could also start a virtual camera, and there's something called studio mode. We'll come back to this a little later to see what you can do with this. Also, you can jump into settings or exit the application. For now though, let's simply kick off a basic recording. I have now started my recording and you can see I'm now recording my screen. So all of this will be captured. So while I'm recording, I can also click on this icon to the right of stop recording and that'll pause my recording. Once I'm ready to record again, I can unpause and that'll once again resume the recording. Once I'm all done, I can click on stop recording. Congratulations, we have finished our first recording. If you want to watch your recording, go up to the file menu up on top and then click on the option that says show recording. This will open up File Explorer and here I can see a recording. Let's click on this to see how it turned out. I'm now started my recording and you can see my recording. Now that recording looks great, the one thing you will notice though is this is an MKV file. MKV file, you typically can't open that in editing software and it's not that easy to share with others. To be able to work with this file, go to the file menu and then click on Remarks Recording. You can click on the ellipses over here and then select the file that we just recorded. You can then click on Open and then once you're ready to remark, click on this button that says Remarks. The recording has been remarked. Let's click on OK and then close this window. If you go back to show recording in the file menu, you will now see that we have an MP4 file. You can very easily work with this in whatever editing software that you want. Now you might be wondering, what if I just want to record directly to an MP4? That's kind of pain to record something and then have to go to Remarks. the default. Within output, under the recording category, you can change the default recording format. And here look, you could change it to MP4. Of course, there's a reason why OBS sets MKV as a default. Let's say that maybe you're recording a 2-hour lecture with MP4. Let's say halfway through the lecture, your computer crashes. Well, you're going to lose every single thing that you recorded up to that point. With MKV, on the other hand, if your computer crash, let's say halfway through this lecture, everything up to the point of the crash would still be served. So in a sense, you can think of MKV as an insurance policy. So it takes an extra step where you have to go to file and remarks, but maybe you have a little bit extra security. Now of course, if you are recording something short, maybe it's just a minute or two, feel free to go with the MP4 because the risk of having a failure is probably pretty low. So whichever one you prefer, feel free to set that here. I'm going to leave mine on MKV. One of the things that you might have noticed in the screen recording is at the very beginning of the screen recording, I click on start recording and then I can minimize OBS. At the very end of the recording, I would have to open OBS again and then click on stop recording. If I don't want to show OBS at all, well, I could use editing software to cut out the beginning and the end, or alternatively, I can use OBS to set shortcut keys to both start and stop the recording. To set a shortcut key within OBS, go up to the file menu and then let's click on settings. Within settings, over on the left hand side, click on hotkeys. Within hotkeys, you can set a shortcut to start the recording and to stop the recording. Here, for example, I press F2 to start and then I could also press F2 to stop. This way, I could toggle that key combination to both start and then stop the recording. You could also set shortcut keys for pretty much any action that you could take in OBS. Here too, you could pause or unpause the recording, and there are many others. Now that you know the basics of how to use OBS to capture your display, next I want to show you some of the more advanced uses of OBS. And now I want to show you how you can build a more complex scene. I want to use this scene that we just created as the base. I'm going to call this scene my desktop capture with webcam. Once you're done typing in the scene name, click on OK. I now have a second scene and I have all the same resources. I want to add a webcam. So let's click on the plus icon. And a webcam is a video capture device. Let's select this option. Next, I can give it a name. I'll stick with the default name of video capture device and then click on OK. This opens up my webcam properties and all the defaults look good. Next, my webcam image is now on the screen, but it's massive compared to the size of my desktop. To adjust this, down within the sources, click on your video capture device and then you will see a red rectangle appear around their source. Now I can click on the corner to adjust the size. If I want to modify the position, I can click on the item and then I could drag it on my screen. I'll continue adjusting the size just to make it smaller. And here once again, by clicking on the item, I can reposition it. Now I just want this to be a small rectangle in the bottom right hand corner of my screen. So I'll move it down there. That's looking a lot better now. Along with being able to simply reposition and also resize my webcam image, I can do the same for the desktop image that appears here. Just like before, within the sources list, I'm going to click on display capture. Here I see a red rectangle appear around my display, and just like with the webcam image, I can reposition my desktop or I could adjust the size if I want. Now once again, this entire black area is what I'll be recording. So here in this case, I want to record my desktop, so I'll leave it. So it uses up the full space with my webcam image. You'll notice that there's a lot of space on both sides of this toy, and that takes away from being able to see the desktop behind me. So I want to crop my image a little bit, and luckily that's pretty easy to do. Once again, I'll make sure that I select my video capture device and then I see this red rectangle again that appears around my image. I can press the Alt key and then click on this red rectangle and I can drag it in, and that will essentially crop the image. Here again, I'll do it on the other side and just like did before. Now you see a little bit of a tighter image and you can see more of the desktop behind me. Now, just like I crop my video, I can crop any one of my sources. So even here with my desktop, let's say I only want to record a certain area of my screen, I can do that using cropping. Here I'll select the display capture, and just like I did with the video, I can click on this red border, press the Alt key, and then I could drag this in, and that will only record this specific area of my screen. Now of course, I want to record my whole screen, so I'll press the Alt key and then drag back out, and that will re-add my entire screen. My scene is really starting to come together, but I do want to add a few more sources. Now I can click on the plus icon down below to add additional sources, or I could also drag and drop items directly into OBS. Here, I have a logo sitting on my desktop. I can simply click on it and then drag it over to my scene. Here now I see my logo files appears. Now, just like with all other items, I have this red rectangle around the item and I could resize my logo. Now I want to position this right above my video image. I also want to include a border around my video. Right now, it seems like just kind of hanging there over the background. To add a border, let's go down to the sources and I'll click on the plus icon. For this, I want to add a color source. Let's click on that. I'll leave the default name and then click on OK. This opens up properties for color source. I'm going to move this over a little and I want to use the same blue that appears in my logo. Here, I can click on select color and I want to pick a screen color. Let's click on that. Over here, I can hover over my logo and I'll take this blue color. Next, let's click on OK. So now I have this color source. Let's click on OK. And now I see a rectangle with that color source. I'm going to adjust the size of this and I'll put it right over my video. Now you'll see that the video sits in back of the color source. I want the color source to be a border for my video. So I want it in a back of my video source. Down here within sources, I can see all the different sources within the scene. Now the item at the top is the topmost layer. The item at the bottom is the bottommost layer. Now I want my color source to appear behind my video capture device. So I'll simply click on this item and then drag and drop it behind the video device. I could also use this up and down arrow, shape the layers of the different items. So here now you see I have this color source behind my video capture device. Of course, the border is pretty thick now. So when I have color source selected, I can reposition this just like I did before. I can use the Alt key to crop the size of this color source. So here I'll do it. So it's a nice border around my video that looks pretty good now. I might want to make some sources visible and some sources not visible. So let's say I wanted to work on the desktop and having my video here somewhat distracting. I can go down here and there's an eye icon. When I click on that, that'll hide the source. So I could hide all these topmost items. I could simply toggle that again to re-show those different items. Now let's say I'm all done positioning my video and then logo. I might want to lock those items. I don't disturb their current position. So I now lock those 3 items and I can move my desktop around and I don't have to worry about mistakenly clicking on my logo or the video because those are now locked in that position. Now that I've locked the position, this is one unit right here. So I have the logo, the video, the color source. I really view this as a group. Now I can click on the sources and I press this shift key and I can group the selected items. So I'm going to call this group logo and video. Now I click on enter and I can collect this group. So it helps clean up my list of sources. And this way I know when I select this item, I can show that whole group or it can hide the whole group. So it helps organize my sources a little bit better. My new scene is all together now. And this point, I can now start streaming. I could start recording. I could start my virtual camera. So I could basically go live with this. Now let's say that maybe I have my webcam up here, but then I want to hide it because maybe I want people to focus on the full screen and not my face. Well, over here on the left hand side, I can click on the other scene and this will shift the scene back to just my full desktop. Now let's say I'm done explaining the whole desktop. I can now click on my scene and that will show me again here in the bottom right hand corner. Now one of the problem is when I click on this different scene, it's a little bit of hard cut. What if I want to have more of a transition? Well, that brings us to this category here called a scene transitions. Right now it's set to simply cut, but I have all these other transition that I can set. I click on it OK for that name. Here I can preview what the transition look like. That looks good. Let's click on OK. So when I'm streaming, when I'm recording, I can click on that scene and once again that also swipe it away. So here I can choose from many different transitions and I can customize the transition to make my recording or my stream look better. Now, just like before, I don't want to have to open up OBS to shift between my scenes. Instead, here too, I can also set shortcut keys. If I go to the top left hand corner once again, let's click on File, click into Settings, and then go to Hotkeys. Within this list, I see my different scenes names. Here's the desktop capture with webcam and I see my scene. I can set a shortcut key to switch to this scene. For example, I'll set F1 to switch to desktop with webcam. And then for my full desktop, I'll set that to F2. Next, I click on Apply and then OK. back within the main screen here. Now if I want to jump between scenes, I'll simply press F2, that jumps back to my desktop, and F1, and that jump back to my scene with webcam. So here too, I could set shortcut keys to kick off my record, and I could set shortcut keys to switch my scenes. Now that you look at how you can seamlessly switch between scenes, I want to show you some additional functionality related to sources. Down here within sources, when you select one of your sources, you will see some buttons that appear right up here. Here, you can return to your properties, and you could also jump into filters. Within filters, up in the top left hand corner, I have audio and video filters, and then down below, I have some effect filters. Let's first take a look at some of the audio filters. Here, you have all sort of different audio filters that you can apply. For instance, the gain, the limiter, the compressor. One of the interesting ones is you have noise suppression. So let's say that you're streaming or you're recording in a louder environment. You can use noise suppression to cut all that out. Down below, I have also effect filters. Let's click on that to see what we could do. I could apply different effects. I can use a chroma key. Let's say I have a green screen in back of me and I want to remove it. You can use a chroma key for that. I could correct the color. I could crop my video here too. And I could even set something up to scrolls. Let's say you inserted a text into your scene. You could have that scroll across your screen. So there are all sort of different filters that you could play with. It's definitely worth some time looking in here and seeing what you can do. Along with being able to apply filters to individual sources, I could also transform a source. So what does that mean? Well, here down below, I click on the group that I created with the logo in the video. When I click on this, there's the option for transform. With transform, I could rotate items, I could flip items, I could also center them on the screen. Here, I'll click on the center to screen, and here you see that my logo and webcam jumps to the center. I'll move it back to the corner, but here with transform, I could very quickly make changes to my different sources. We've been looking at many of the different ways you can take advantage of the power of OBS. Now, so far we've been using the user interface as it comes out of the box. You can adjust the things to meet your needs. For instance, I could click on controls and I could drag it out of the experience. Or maybe I want to put scene transition over on the left hand side. I can move these different items wherever I want. Now, let's say you move a bunch of things and you want to reset it. You could simply right click on an item and then click on reset UI, and then that will return back to the original state. Along with being able to customize the user interface, you can also set up multiple profiles. Well, let's say you go into file, settings, and you go through and you make a whole bunch of modification to these settings. So maybe you have one profile for streaming and then you have a different profile with a different set of setting for recording. You can then very quickly jump back and forth between those profiles. Another way that you can customize the experience is using something called scene collections. And what is scene collection? So just like a scene has a multiple sources under it, a scene collection can have multiple scenes under it. So it's basically one level up from scenes. And I'll jump into my scene collection that I use for my YouTube channel. So here you see I have an entirely new set of scenes and then sources under those scenes. If I want to jump back to my other scene collection, I can simply click here and now you see the scenes that we created together. We've covered quite a bit of functionality today, but the last thing I want to touch on is how you can use the OBS Studio. Or on the right hand side, there's an option called Studio Mode under the controls, and you could use this when you're streaming or when you're recording. Let's click into this to see what we can do. And then I see the program or on the right hand side. The easiest way to think of what programs means is when you are streaming or when you're recording. This is what's being recorded or this is what's being streamed. Over on the left hand side, we see a preview. So I could click on my desktop, I could adjust the size. So maybe I want to modify things. Now anything I'm doing over on the left, that's not being recorded and it's not being streamed. So I can make an adjustment over on the left. And let's say that, while I'm streaming, I want to change my view to look like this. And I can then click on transition. And this now goes live out to my audience where I'm streaming or when I'm recording. Alright, we are now equipped with all the information you need to make the best of your OBS experience. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. To see more videos like this in the future, hit the subscribe button. If you have any question, please leave a comment down below. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy and I hope to see you next time. Bye.